I'm big.
And I'm Surly, and I've decided to try to channel the Emperor today from Star Wars.
Why? With the black hood?
Yes.
Did the Emperor wear a ball hat?
No, he didn't, but I'm just I was just in the mood to wear my hood today. What?
I just find that bald guys nowadays, it's like a cultural norm for bald guys to wear a baseball hat all the time.
Really?
Yeah, even indoors.
I have no
and maybe
idea.
It's because your friggin' heads get cold.
That's why I do it.
I suppose when you're outside, you would get a really bad sunburn on the top of your head, so you would need to cover it in some way.
Yeah, that happens too.
So maybe I should stop picking on bald guys. I guess I wasn't. I did have a friend once that got really mad at me for making a bald joke because it turned out he was super sensitive about the fact that he was going bald.
I don't understand. I see, the thing is I started going bald after my coma when I was 19 years old. It was probably a result of the super steroids and the super antibiotics that I got to try to help me live.
So your hair just fell out.
Yeah, my hair literally all pretty much fell out and then regrew, and the top part never grew back thick. So, I mean, for me, I just started shaving my head. And at this point, I just like, hair is hair.
I've never known you with more than like maybe a quarter inch of hair.
Yeah, I saw when I was a kid, I made jokes about when I'd go bald, I'd start shaving my head around 26. When I started to be pretty much functionally bald on top, I started shaving my head.
What are you eating?
It's this mud stuff that I drink.
Oh.
I was just enjoying the spoon.
Hipster.
What's that?
You fucking hipster.
It's actually, Nicole wanted me to stop drinking coffee. And this is a healthy alternative to it. And Steve calls me a hipster too. Why the fuck am I a hipster? Like, seriously.
Glasses alone qualify for you for hipster category.
Dude, I have minus
You're like
19
a nerdster,
vision.
maybe instead of a hipster.
I have minus 19 vision. I have to wear glasses. These are the ones that make it as thin as these are the ones that make it as thin as possible.
Well, then you're just unlucky because you ended up with some fat black hipster frames.
I always do.
If they were like turtle, then that would be super hipster. That
right.
Like brown yellow mix that they do for the plastic and glasses frames.
Because I'm pretty much blind, what I do is I go into an eyeglass place. I'm like, all right, help me find something that looks half decent that'll give me the smallest lens possible. And I usually walk out with whatever they fucking like offer me.
I got LASIK while I was still in Korea.
I can't get
$1,000 an eye. My eyes are so huge that they told me I could get LASIK twice. Because LASIK, your eyes still go bad.
Okay. Well, I can't get LASIK. You can only get LASIK up to minus 10. After minus 10, you have.
Worse than that.
You're not supposed to get LASIK after minus 10. Yeah, they're for safety reasons after minus 10 because of the way the eye elongates with getting bad. It's supposed to get more dangerous the further it gets, the worse your prescription gets. So the one that I'm eligible for is the one where they replace the top of your eye. And that one's like $5,000 an eye. So that's like never going to happen.
LASIK is here. But in Korea, it cost me $2,000 to get both eyes done and a pair of glasses because I had the same problem you did, which was a very high prescription and therefore Coke bottle lenses, which forced me to choose frame types that minimized the lens size. And I also always paid for the high index lenses, so they were thinner.
Yep.
And that made lenses cost like $1,200.
They're not that much. Maybe
in the States they are.
Maybe in the States. That's weird.
This
because
is 10 years ago, 15 years ago when 15 years ago was the last pair of glasses I bought.
These ones were about 800.
Still, that's
Most
a
of
lot of
that
money
is
for,
almost all of that is the lenses. Like I think the
yeah.
glass, I think the frames themselves are less than 200. Which for a titanium frame, I guess, is fairly reasonable.
That's about on par with me paying 1,500 for a new pair of glasses.
Yeah. So, I mean, we have kind of beaten around the bush today. I'm not sure either of us are quite ready to start this topic. But today we're going to talk about other people's bodies. And I mean, this is a really interesting topic, frankly. But I'm going to start with my view on abortion. I'm pro-abortion. I think it should be basically like knee surgery.
Not pro-choice, he says.
Yeah. Pro-abortion. And the difference between pro-choice and pro-abortion is that I think that not only should there be the right, but it should be like knee surgery. If you need it, you just go to a hospital and you get it done discreetly. So that would also avoid the crowds of fucking like pro-life people. And I mean, I understand the pro-life arguments, at least the moral arguments, but my response has always been when we care about the living to the point where everyone's doing okay, I'll start caring about the potential.
Yeah, and that's the fucking fundamentally frustrating thing, right? Because the Republicans are pushing this, but the Republicans are also the ones that killed the earned income tax credit for every American.
Well, I think like I follow this group called Breaking Points, and I find them to be actually a really decent news source.
Did they get deplatformed?
They haven't been deplatformed yet. From what I understand,
this is also worth mentioning. Mint Press and
Mint Press News, Consortium News, and a Russian journalist have now been nuked by PayPal. And PayPal is actually keeping like $10,000 belonging to Consortium News for no reason, just basically for disagreeing with the official narratives on Ukraine.
This is why monopolistic practices, the kind of capitalism that's being the sort of robber baron 2.0 shit that's going on nowadays, these people get wealthy enough that they essentially start to act like gangsters.
Yeah.
Because we don't have a rule of law. And these companies, the thing that they're facing are fines. So their pockets are so deep, they are happy to pay the fine.
Yeah.
For doing something illegal.
When the punishment is a fine, it's only illegal for the poor.
Exactly.
But we're getting a little off topic. But yeah, no, these being able to have a diversity of opinion is important. And
even batshit crazy leftists, which I don't necessarily entirely agree with some of their nonsense.
And this is kind of the thing, is like the alt-left wants you to have health care, the alt-right wants to basically cage people and are ultra-nationalists.
Yeah, the loss of the right to abortion is going to lead to shit like indentured servitude coming back. The state of Texas,
isn't it?
Nope. The state of Texas is already preparing drafts to argue that it's not responsible for maintaining public schools, in part off of this decision that leaked.
Oh, wow. So it's new. Yeah, I knew that the implications were fairly wide.
We're talking about a fundamental loss of rights. And it's not just because of the legal precedent for Roe. It's that now the court has exercised its nuclear option. It's done the one thing that they claimed they wouldn't do. And now that they've done that, the Overton window has shifted so wide that they think they can get away with anything now.
It's not. The Overton window's been shifting for a long time. From my understanding of the situation in relation to Roe versus Wade in the US, and I'm a Canadian citizen, of course, is that the Republicans have been working for like close to 50 years to try to stack the court in order to do this. So this is actually this has been a long time coming. Like these are not sudden things. Things did not suddenly get worse. It's just that these days it's a lot easier to see the machinations that go on behind the scenes because we're able to see a lot of things in real time because of social media, and we're allowed to see a lot of things that we would otherwise have not been allowed to see if mainstream media still had hard control of the global narrative, or at least our country's narratives. And this is another reason why losing stuff like Mint Press News and Consortium News and like even the demonization of alternative media sources, like, yes, I understand that RT is Russian state media. I read news from Tehran. I read news out of Iran. Read news out of India. And it's not because I believe them, it's because I want to know what the fuck they're saying. And I mean, our entire,
All media is propaganda.
what's that?
All media is propaganda.
All media, you take all of it with a grain of salt. I mean, like, if you think that the billionaires who own media ever had our best interests at heart and were telling the truth, I'm not sure what it's going to take to disillusion you at this point after the last 20 years, especially when we have literally currently ongoing with the Ukraine conflict, media and government officials openly admitting that they knew they're spreading disinformation, but decided to do it because it was good for the war. It was good for Ukraine. Like the ghost of Kiev bullshit, the idea that Ukraine has a chance in hell of winning this, like all of these things are problematic lies. And some are being told knowingly, some are being told unknowingly, but without an ability to get information from a variety of sources, you're going to be fed bullshit. And I mean, if you look back over the last 50 years leading up to the problems that we now face, it's pretty easy to see that corporate control and government control of information sources within North America have directly resulted in us engaging in illegal wars abroad, resource manipulation, and resource extraction to the detriment of the third world populations. Our entire like product supply lines contain slavery. So I mean, what we've allowed to and go down,
that brings it back to our topic, which
yeah,
is body autonomy. Slavery is unacceptable.
It should be. We now have more slaves in modern times than I think than in any other time in recorded history, from my understanding of the numbers.
Really?
Yeah, it's over 33 million.
But as a percentage, it's much smaller.
I think yes. I think on a proportionate basis, there may have been more slavery in the past, but I know in a direct numerical thing, I've read that numerically we're at the highest number in history.
And it very much depends on how you define slavery. I'm enough of a lefty that I would go so far as to say that a lot of American jobs are wage slavery.
Oh, we've recreated that. We've recreated a form of feudalism. It's actually been recognized and now discussed by more left-leaning economists that this is a type of feudalism era that we're entering through using debt to tie people rather than tying people to the land.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was a deliberate choice. Like, we could have either had good wages and stability and the ability to save for the future, or they can control every aspect of our life by making it so that there is no social mobility and we can never afford to do anything except what is in front of us. And I mean,
is the bread and circuses, Netflix,
Well, it's like Warren Buffett
Flaming hot
said.
Cheetos.
When asked about the class war, Warren Buffett was very blunt about it. He said, "Yeah, of course there's a class war, but only my class, the rich, are fighting it, and we're winning."
Yeah, we should not have billionaires, folks. Remember that.
No, billionaires are too much of a concentration of wealth. I mean, literally. But back to the topic at hand is, I see. It's hard to talk about this issue because for me, it's really a no-brainer. Like,
Yeah,
if somebody
that was the problem I had with doing this topic too. We got off on a good discussion earlier. We're trying to get back there.
Well, I mean, my idea was that, like, see, the thing is I can understand where both sides are coming from. If a woman doesn't want to get like, having a kid is fucking crazy. Most people cannot afford a child at this time in this world. So, like, if they want an abortion, fuck, let them have it. Like, that is their body, that is their choice. We're not going to have to go through the pain, the disfigurement, and all of the issues that are associated with childbirth. On the other hand, if a guy doesn't want a kid, but the woman doesn't want an abortion, the guy should be able to walk from future obligations. And that levels the playing field in my mind. I like the women's rights are respected and the men's rights are respected. Women's bodies are not bound, guys' futures are not enslaved.
Yeah, I gotta think on that, because
instinctively it feels like it's wrong. It should be wrong, but it doesn't. It isn't. It's fair. It's very fair. I've had this discussion with a lot of people over the years. It's the fairest solution I've been able to come up with.
Well, part of the thing is I've been inculcated into a system that says having to pay for child support is just not only acceptable but necessary.
Paying for, see, and this is the thing, is we've made it the legal obligation that guys should pay child support, but that is a fundamental, and I think has been one of the biggest problems in getting rights dealt with in the family court, is that sometimes if there needs to be the ability for a guy to say no, and if the woman goes through with it, to not be held responsible. Some women abuse the child thing. Some guys don't want to be locked down for life, and the fact that we live in a society.
Kanye West, if she's a gold digger.
I don't know what you mean, but
it's a song.
The idea that the state has given up. See, the thing is we live in a society where
the state poverty has becoming the norm. A legal responsibility towards children, but it is abrogated that legal responsibility towards children.
It doesn't actually have any more legal responsibility to children than anybody else does. The thing about this is that, I mean, we live in an individualistic society, but this comes down to even more than this. It's like, if a woman has the right to just have casual sex and be able to walk away from the consequences, so does a guy. And that's it. That's where it begins and ends. And I mean,
I'm more focused on the fact that forcing a woman to have a baby is enslavement. Slavery is legal.
Right. But forcing a guy to take care of a child that he never wanted in the first place is slavery as well. And this is the thing, is if this was actually dealt with fairly, I think a lot less people would have issues with abortion. Like, the crazy religious people who are basically Satanists who pretend to be Christians are never going to give up their fucking fight.
Well, that's a good segue into something I wanted to talk about. I post on a board called Christian Libertarians, and they purport to be both Christian and libertarians. So they,
and I'm sure it's not impossible,
as a general rule, I consider myself one, but that's because I'm a leftist, and I don't see how you can be right wing and those two things at the same time, because Christianity dictates that you care for the poor and downtrodden.
Mhm.
And if you're failing to care for the poor and downtrodden, then you're not a very good fucking Christian. But these folks are mostly Christo-fascists
Yeah.
and anarcho-capitalists.
Well,
They hide behind the rhetoric of the Bible.
Mhm. Yeah, religion has always been it has been an area that heavily easily abused by pieces of shit for personal fucking, what's the word for it? Agendas.
Well, the fact that you've got guys like Joel Osteen.
I don't know who that is. Who is that?
He's a mega church operator. He's one of the purveyors of the
They're the
belief that
Christianity of wealth people or something. If
yes,
you're rich,
yes,
you're supposed to have been because of God's bullshit.
Yes. Basically, it's a retake on the idea that you as a king have the right to be king because you're king, and you wouldn't be king if you weren't chosen by God to be king, and therefore you have the right to be king. A little bit of circular logic there for you.
Yeah. It's just rationalizations for fucking not worrying about fucking most people struggling and dying around you.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a sort of hypocrisy. Well, I mean, our entire society is based around that. I mean, we are both raised in societies where we are quite openly taught that we do not even owe the people in our community help, food, or shelter. Like, our idea is like, it is live
but do
or
you
die.
Believe
that we're raised in that sort of environment?
No, do you believe that those values are good values and are your values?
Which ones?
The ones you just listed, that people basically ultra individualism.
No, I think it's toxic.
Yeah, exactly. So we both have broken out of the system.
Right, but they are still prevailing dominant themes within our society that, I mean, when you realize that, I mean, 60% of Canadians or more probably at this point, it was 57% of Canadians when this survey was taken, were struggling, and this was before the Ukrainian war, so it's definitely gone up. 57% of Canadians were struggling to put food on the table. We've got record homelessness, record food bank use right now. So, I mean,
eviction rates have skyrocketed in the US.
Yeah. So, I mean, the fact that there's been a steady erosion of rights under neoliberalism over the past 50 years has been really obvious. But the reason I bring up that value that I was discussing earlier, that value that surrounds all of us, that nobody is worth helping, like, there is really a punch down sort of attitude, a real blame the poor sort of attitude. So
that goes all the way back, at least in the US, and probably to a lesser degree in Canada, to the ethos of the Pilgrims. They were religious fundamentalists, and they believed in predestination to a large degree. And so if you were poor, it's because God decided you should be poor. Well, and that transformed into, if you're poor, it's a moral failing on your part that you are poor.
And that comes directly from the monarchy, which were put into place by God. So, I mean, you were obviously born into your station. What happened to you was what was assigned to you by God, and blah, blah, blah. Religious people are crazy. That's all we need to really understand. But getting back to it, fuck, you derailed me.
Well, we've only got 2 minutes, so we need to wrap it up. So basically, the point is, your body's your body. You don't want to get a vaccine? You don't get a vaccine. You're fine with that.
Yeah.
But you want to force women to have children.
Yeah.
So your body is your body, but her body is everyone's. Apparently, it's the baby's body.
Well, we have I mean, the fact that there has been a very steady erosion of rights since the 90s. And we're now getting
This
down to our
is
fundamental rights being destroyed.
this
It's
is the
fight back or
first
lose everything.
chip in the wall. This
Oh,
is,
we're long past the first chip.
I mean, in terms of the wall fucking collapsing. Like, I mean, all of the rights we take for granted going away if you live in the wrong state.
Yeah.
That is what we're looking at. Texas just deciding we're not going to do public schools anymore is a possibility.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the whole idea that we should probably care less about what women are doing with their bodies and maybe care more about what billionaires are doing with our future.
That's a good phrase to leave us on. I've been big.
I've been surly.
Via con Deus.
Later.